To a difficult subject now with some truly shocking findings. There is worrying evidence that some of our youngest children are self-harming. And if that wasn't alarming enough, the numbers are also soaring. NHS England recorded more than 1,000 incidents of self-harm by 3 to 12-year-olds in the last year. That is a 95% increase on 5 years ago. A survey out today by the charity Place to Be found 45% of school leaders say they struggle to get mental health support for their pupils. To mark the end of Children's Mental Health Week, the ITV News digital team has been hearing the experiences of teachers.
Yeah, the youngest case of self-harm that I've dealt with is actually 3 years old, and there's a misconception of it being teenagers and a lot older. They were using scratching, punching themselves, hitting themselves against the walls. I've worked with a young lady that started self-harming at 8. Her class had 25 children in there. 13 of those children were self-harming, and in fact they were showing each other how to do it better.
The experiences of charity workers and teachers there, and sorry about the loss of sound on that clip. I'm joined in the studio now by Sharon Branagh, who is a behavioural specialist from the charity Tappy twins, and from Liverpool by the MP Luciana Berger, who was part of the Health Select Committee that investigated children's mental health last year. Thank you both for joining me. There can't be anyone out there listening to this who isn't shocked by those statistics.
It is quite shocking, and what's alarming is the age. You know, who would think that?
Yeah, when we're talking about children as young as 3, but even up to 12, but when we're talking about the 3-year-olds, the very youngest, what constitutes self-harm?
Well, self-harm is any behaviour that is self-poisoning or self-injurious, regardless of intention.
What does that look like in a 3-year-old, in a toddler?
OK, so in a 3-year-old, if you can imagine them becoming very frustrated and angry, they might hit themselves, bite themselves, pull their hair, and that's an expression, and that constitutes self-harm
OK, I would like to clarify this. So we see toddlers, 3-year-olds, 3.5-year-olds having temper tantrums.
Yeah.
If they are hitting the floor, is that self-harm? Is it different if they are hitting themselves?
Yes, that is the key point. Every child has a temper tantrum. It's not normal to develop without expressing yourself and finding your own way in life. But when it turns on themselves, that's when it becomes a problem.
Let's bring in Luciana now. Thank you for joining me. We need to take action urgently, don't we? We are failing our primary aged children here.
Well, indeed, and the figures that you refer to today are specifically about children having to be admitted to hospital. This is children in a crisis, and they should never have to be admitted to hospital because of self-harm. Everything should be done to prevent it where possible in the first place, but also to intervene earlier to give that child the best start in life. And we know from the many investigations that we've done and from experiences like here in Liverpool that we know our services, our children and young people's mental health services, are under an incredible and enormous amount of strain and pressure, and they're just not able to essentially treat and support all the children that need help across our country.
A question to you both, and I'll start with you, Luciana. What are we learning from the work you've both done about the causes, the underlying issues that are making children have these serious mental health problems? Luciana first, please.
Well, there are many different causes. We know that some things happen in childhood before children even get to school, and that's why there's a real big focus in Parliament at the moment about addressing adverse childhood experience. That's around trauma that children might experience at home. It's around issues around children that might be witness to domestic violence and domestic abuse. That will have an impact on them as well if there's any bereavement in a family. There's also the pressures that young people face and children face when they start school, and pressures amongst their peers and bullying. And then the academic pressures, which we heard about only in the last week in the Health Select Committee and the joint inquiry we're doing with the Education Select Committee into young people's mental health.
Luciana, thank you. And Sharon, very briefly in one sentence, would you echo what Luciana's just said?
I would, but also add that it's about communication, control and distraction. A lot of children's self-harm to cause the physical pain actually distracts from the emotional pain. So it's a coping strategy.
Goodness, what a state we are in, Sharon and Luciana. Thank you very much both for joining me to talk about this very important issue. Thank you. And if you're concerned about any of the issues raised in our discussion, we want your help with, or want help with spotting the signs of mental health problems in children. You can find out more on our website. That's at itv.com/news.